Yes, people, we're back in the building. United State of Mind, State of Play, Part 1. We're going to kick it off with a bit of chatter around Ten Hag, kind of a bit of carryover from last season into the new season, and, you know, just talking about some of the performances from last season, his role in that, like, obviously, what the contract extension means for him, the club, and the process, the project moving forward, and then kind of just looking ahead. Obviously, I've done the first 3 games of the season kind of review, but just a wider look of what is his expectations going into this new season and stuff. But yeah, let's get into it, man. Make sure you're hitting the like button, subscribe button as well. If you're new, hit the notification bell and all that good stuff right there. I told you the heat is coming. I'm grinding hard throughout this season to give you as much content as possible. But let's get into it, man. So obviously the performance last season from the team, he's obviously the head coach. So obviously a lot of the pressure, a lot of the criticism will fall on his head. Natural. The results weren't good. You finished 8th in the league. Some of the signings that he had didn't work out maybe to the certain level of expectation that people expected. Obviously, new goalkeeper comes in Andrea Onana. Made a lot of high-profile mistakes. A lot of people were very critical of Erasmus Højlund, obviously the money that was invested in him. I think you're kind of in a very tricky scenario. You're going to be investing that kind of money for potential in that strikers market, young strikers market nowadays, right? You're very lucky if you're going to get somebody who's had a decent career, even like a decent kind of career so far. You're going to struggle to get that person for under £50 million because goals are a premium in football. So, I'm just looking at that signing. I'm thinking who else? Amrabat came in on the loan deal, and obviously that didn't work out maybe to what a lot of people were expecting. Because I remember when he was signed, there was a lot of excitement surrounding his signing, based on some of the World Cup performances. But we already know that's a very tricky road to go down. Looking at the performances of a player when they're playing for their country in a major tournament doesn't always translate into how it looks in club football, and you've seen so many examples of that over the years, and he's another one, right? Where there's a reason why he hadn't left Fiorentina, and there's a reason why he's at the level he's at now. I believe right now he's at Galatasaray. It kind of tells you everything you need to know. He's a decent player. He's okay. He's a squad level player. If he wants to be able to play for a big club, the performances have to match that. And I think he's a kind of player who will play up to competition rather than he already setting the tone, essentially, right? Mason Mount, obviously injury ravaged season, so that signing doesn't look good in his hands. I understand why he wanted him in. I think the price tag was not, once again, it's not his fault. It's the people negotiating the deal with Chelsea, but ultimately that's another player who's come in and hasn't really performed to the expectation that maybe he wanted. And we kind of move into like style of play. Like obviously last season was the period where he could embed his style of play. So bringing in the goalkeeper to be able to play out from the back was one of the key elements to it. You bring in that keeper comfortable with his feet, but the other elements is just a bit wayward, right? But this is what I'm saying. I touched on this in the earlier video, that style of play, he definitely started to implement it, but then obviously you're seeing a lot of gaps and holes within that, especially in transition. And I was thinking to myself when I was initially watching it at the start of last season, the gaps that were left in midfield whenever the opposing team were counter-attacking against us and they were moving in transition, those gaps in midfield just allowed for so many errors, so many goals conceded, so many shots conceded, right? And after a while, I realized in the season that it is an instruction by the manager, the coaching staff, to play that particular type of style. The thing that's hindering them is the player's particular attributes. So you're going to play a Casemiro in the 6th position and you're expecting him to join the press. Let's say we lose the ball and it breaks down, and the attack breaks down after our press, when we create a turnover and it breaks down for some reason, in transition, you're expecting that player that you put in the 6 to be able to run back into that space to cover that ground. and Casemiro is just incapable of doing it, and that was the reason why we were conceding so many shots or so many chances in transition. And obviously, it's still yet to be addressed. We're waiting for the debut of Ugarte before we can actually really judge that, right? So I wonder if they've gotten the right person in place to be able to address that side of things in transition. But style of play was like one of those things that a lot of people were looking for. And I feel like I saw it in so many little iterations. I mentioned this in a previous video as well, that there's been so many iterations across the season. It's just the thing that was most frustrating was the fact that he wasn't able to make it a very consistent theme across the season. And obviously with that and the injuries, like it just kind of meant that you weren't able to do what you need to do. And the thing about it is that the key thing for me is a lot of people were saying injuries are an excuse, but when you have a squad of players where the profiles are all over the place. So I'll give you an example. Centre backs. Martinez and Varane as a partnership, and I know Varane has gone by now, but like, just need to talk about it. They are able to do what is needed for Ten Hag to be able to continue to build up from the back. They're able to step forward with the ball and make line-breaking passes. When both of them are injured, and now your replacements are Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans specifically, because Lindelof can do it as well. I don't know why he wasn't utilized as much. There was some injuries with him too. But when it's Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans, they are less likely to step forward with the ball and then hit the line breaking pass. They're more likely to step forward with the ball and hit a diagonal. Prime example, Burnley away. Johnny Evans sets up a goal. Well, kind of like the pre-assist before the assist, by hitting the stepping forward and hitting a diagonal out to, I believe it was Marcus Rashford. Someone can remind me. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, if you had 4 centre backs in your squad, 4 first team centre backs that they all did the same thing, you wouldn't have the issue with the injuries. But the fact that you're starting to are able to step forward and comfortable enough to step forward and then hit a line breaking pass, and then you have the backup centre backs when they have to come in because of the injuries, unable to do that, and instead kind of like hitting those diagonals because they're not comfortable with the instructions from the manager or the coaching staff, you're gonna have issues with the way the play looks. In terms of the other side of it though, and when I'm speaking about those transitions, like the Casemiro kind of situation, it's like there may be players that are able to cover ground, but I think based on the assessment of the squad, first team specifically, there's nobody that can do that in that particular 6 role. So you're kind of like hamstrung at that point. And obviously the results at the end of the day kind of they were what they were. Like, you know, there was a small little upturn in results like in the second half of the season, but ultimately the damage was done in that first half of the season where, you know, you just weren't able to get the results or pull together a string of results that were going to set you up for success in the second half of the season where you could push for top 4. And ultimately players were checking out. A lot of injuries have happened, so now all the game plans are wrecked, and now you're in a situation where you're in trouble, right? And to finish 8th, it's unacceptable. It's the lowest position that United have ever been in Premier League history. But there are a lot of caveats, and I kind of look at it as like, as a club, we finally hit a wall where the same things that we've been doing over and over and over again, sometimes we've been bailed out by the managers that were in charge, but this time around, it just wasn't going to happen. The manager's now starting to implement what he wants, and everything falls apart. And we hit that wall. So obviously it's time to hit the reset button, and that coinciding with INEOS coming in, which was also an interesting time because there was a lot of uncertainty around the club, playing staff, manager, and non-playing staff. You could tell that there was like a very weird atmosphere that was unsettling for a lot of people. So I wonder if that played a part in the way the performances were going for players and managers specifically, because they knew that effectively they were under trial. And I feel like, yeah, that's justified. You know, you're gonna feel like there's gonna be a lot of pressure because now there's people watching you that you have no idea what they're going to be doing moving forward. And of course, they would have been discussing things with the players, with the coaching staff, with the manager, to try and, you know, open up lines of communication. But that untold pressure is still there. Now moving into like INEOS and the kind of role they played into the contract extension for Ten Hag, right? So justified or not, like they 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 made a decision based on their review, right? So it was revealed that they'd spoken to a number of different managers, and they came to the conclusion that it was right to keep Ten Hag for at least an extra season on top of the year that he had left. And I think it's a good plan. It's kind of short to medium term thinking, which is good because it's like you give him a season out with your sporting direction. Now you can judge him fully, right? He hasn't had the level of structure around him at the club to date for you to be able to make an informed decision to say you're not good enough for what we need in terms of the sporting plan moving forward. So I think it's interesting that that they've given him that extra year like extension, just kind of like probably a clause in a contract where they just extended it. It allows them to have a year to assess fully, because now they'll have like a lot of knowledge, they'll have a lot of touch points to look at, and then from there they can make an informed decision about whether he's the best man to continue to move forward with the team that he has at his disposal. So I think it was the right decision, but a lot of fans obviously don't think it is. Rival fans will think however they want to think. That's their kind of thing that they want to do. But looking ahead to the new season with Ten Hag, like obviously there's gonna be still question marks on style of play. I think the first 3 games kind of told me that it's clear. The game plan is very clear. It's whether the players are willing to buy into that. Can they take advantage of the chance? Because they create a lot of big chances off of these turnovers that they're initiating from the press, right? If they take those big chances, then the game settles down, and now all of a sudden you can continue to exercise things, because we have a lot of talented players at the club. You're not telling me that all of these talented players are bad all of a sudden. Like, it's just small little things that they just need to clean up. When you're creating big chances for yourself, take them. Because when you take those big chances, now you can settle into the games, and then all of a sudden things will start to flow. You can start to see the ability of all these players on show. I'm hoping for less injuries. I feel like there's been some things behind the scenes, some shake-up behind the scenes that are going to allow to address that. But I think rotation is key to this. So, there's going to be players in there that they're going to get run into the ground if you don't, manage the squad properly. And I feel like the squad has now reshaped a little bit more to allow for more rotation. So you're not going to be seeing guys, fringe players that haven't played many games at all in the season. When the first opportunity there is to rotate, then they're rotated. We've already started to see some rotations from in the forward line or in the back line, for example, specifically because those areas were quite stocked up in, right? So hopefully that continues across the season so that everyone stays fresh. And then, I'm a little bit worried about midfield. It's looking kind of light. I don't know if they're going to be able to dip into the transfer market for a free agent midfielder. There's one available that everyone's been talking about, Rabiot. I wonder if that could happen. If that happens, then it could be interesting. But I don't know. It's looking kind of light for me. But rotation is key to everything in that regard. And then, I think moving on to the objectives and expectations of Ten Hag this year, there's an expectation that he continues to develop a path for young players to come through. He's already kind of done that since he's been at the club. But then at the same time, I feel like he has to get himself back into the Champions League. Like, that's going to be the difference between him potentially keeping his job and him not, getting them back into the Champions League and then seeing where we go from there. And then you have to win another trophy. You've already won 2 in your first 2 seasons. You're using that as a way to defend your time at the club. You have to continue that, because the interesting thing I find about that argument is United fans pre-Ten Hag were very critical of Oli not winning trophies. And now we've won 2 since his arrival. People are now using that as, oh, he's being defensive. Now he's just explaining, look, this is a long road. You're not going to expect quick results. But in the time I've been here, I've been able to win 2 trophies. Whether you like it or not, that's a very difficult thing to do, to win. and he's been able to do that in each of the 2 seasons. The first 2 seasons he's been here. He's in his 3rd season now. An opportunity to go for a European trophy would be a great objective for him, and you know, to give the club their first European trophy since 2017. It'll be another achievement that he can hang on his hat, like, you know, because I don't think he's a bad manager. I think he's been set up by, you know, a lot of bad things that have happened surrounding him. So no real like clear structure. The injuries have really kind of hurt him, and you know, then obviously some certain level of lack of buy-in from players in terms of what he's trying to do and implement on the pitch. So that's kind of where I see it. I see the issues, right? So I'm expecting back into the top 4 and a European trophy, Europa League, like under his belt. If he can do that, that's another great season. And then you'll be looking at 2 seasons out of 3. He's looking really good. But if that doesn't happen, the pressure will mount, and there could be some real serious issues for him. But look, I just wanted to do that little video, state of play part 1 on Ten Hag. Let me know in the comments if you feel like he's the right man to take us forward, or if you feel like there should be a managerial change, or what are your expectations for him this season? Are the ones that I've set, are they realistic for him? And all of that stuff right there. I'll be back with State of Play Part 2 very, very soon. Make sure you're hitting the like button, subscribe button as well. If you're new, hit the notification bell and all that good stuff right there. I'm out, people. Peace.